Right. The purpose of today's session is to go through a demo of the software and talk about how best you can engage your customers and make them understand the benefits of the software. When I started building the software, and then you've probably heard this before, but as a broker, I found that I worked out that around 80% of my time was spent on administrative tasks, and only around 20% of my time was actually spent with customers. And so the idea of Brickflow was to try and invert that metric so that effectively 20% of my time was admin and 80% of my time was with customers. So that's really what it's about, is to try and save time and be more efficient for brokers. But obviously there's benefits for borrowers, for customers as well, which is one of the things that I think is really good to try and get across and differentiate your offering, your service from other brokers. So we've actually got somebody who will join shortly, Rosie Cassidy. So Rosie is a developer that actually used our software really early on with me when we launched it. And she liked it so much. She's a property developer, and she liked it so much she actually became an investor in Brickflow. There's some good validation somewhere there that somebody went through it, liked the process, got a loan, and actually then became an investor. So if my idea or the plan today is to try and show you how I would demo the product. This is going back to 2022, 2023, when we launched our MVP. I was running a lot of demos for people just to get their feedback and understand, how they integrated or interpreted the product. And so I'll do that demo with you today. So typically, let me just share my screen 1 second. By the way, if you've got any questions as we go, please put them in the chat. I'll come to them as we go through. So let me just share my screen. So typically, when I did a demo, I would always have the software open. So if I was doing a video call with a property investor, new or existing, when I'm waiting for them for the call to start, I typically have the software open just because it was, a way to start a conversation. If I just come to our agenda quickly today, so it's about perfecting your pitch. I've yet to see a better way of getting customers engaged with the software than to do a demo. So we speak to brokers, our marketing team will engage with other brokers and their marketing team. And they will often say, what are you doing to promote the software? And there's, quite often, there's emails and things like that. But hands down, the best way to promote the software is actually to run demos. I don't think that will ever be usurped. And I think if you can do a really good demo, then you will convert customers. I would aim for like 10 or 15 a week if you can do that. So, email your database, explain to them you've got some great software that will really enhance the loan procurement process for them, and ask them, just say, look, I'd love to take 10 minutes of your time to show you. When can you talk? Yeah. The other thing you can do is a Loom video. If you've ever used Loom, or if you haven't, it's great. It's free. You can record a screen commentary. So you in the bottom corner, your little face, and then whatever you do on screen is recorded. And that is something that you can send to customers as well. And if you, again, do a very truncated version of a demo, that would be very powerful as well. So as I say, Rosie's going to join us a bit later on. But this would be how I would tend to start. So like I say, I would have like the demo or open. I'd have the software open. I'd then also talk a bit about. I'd have a slideshow, and this we're happy to share this with you. You can copy it, adapt it, whatever. But the idea being is you need to explain the problem and the solution before you do the demo. So ideally this week you'd run through this in a few minutes, but the problem, as we all know, it's very antiquated industry. It's very difficult to find best value quickly. I think the way I always describe it to people who don't know our industry is that borrowers are getting ripped off daily. There's hundreds of millions, billions of pounds being lost by borrowers, yet they don't know it. And they don't know it because there's not an easy way to compare lenders, or there hasn't been. So the way that we think about it is that we've got an industry that's pretty big, 65 billion annually, roughly in the UK, across bridging, commercial loans, and development finance. And we estimate there's about 5 billion of money lost every single year by developers, property investors, and developers across those three verticals, because they do not do a proper market search that you can now do with them with the software. Yeah. The way we think about, so introduce the software as your own. It's white labeled, it's yours. You got your logo on it. They don't need to know it's us. You don't need to talk about Brickflow. You can if you want, but you just talk about it as your software. So we've invested in some new software that allows us to search the market and provide benefits to you. It's a software that allows us to source loans quicker, execute faster, and allows you to spend less time on searching for finance and makes huge savings. So this is the journey of the software, and this is again, you can steal this. We'll share it with you afterwards. This is kind of a really easy way to talk through it visually. So we create a search. We then create a data room on the platform. So we add all the project information, bits about you as a borrower. We then invite lenders into the platform, into the software to make bids on your project, to be your lender. So it works like a tender process. If you're speaking to any property investor, they will understand what a tender process is, as you do. So tender process is something that tends to land quite well. People understand that. We tender our build costs. We might speak to 3 solicitors. So what we're doing here is we're actually tendering the finance. We're giving people all the information they need to make a good decision, fast decision, and they're putting their best foot forward. So that's what we've done. You can then compare those loans side by side on the PDFs that the platform creates, the software creates, and then you can apply. Yeah. So these are some stats. Again, you can use these. These are true as of now, and some from last year. So there was over 5,000 individual users used the software last year, and that is borrowers. So that was through the white label versions of Brickflow. They did this is a combination of brokers and borrowers. 70 billion worth of loan searches were done through the platform, and that's growing every month. So that's a great number, but it will be probably double that this year. There's around 200 million of loan applications going through the platform each month. So the point here is you have buying power. Using the software, you have buying power. Lenders will, absolutely provide better service, better rates, because there's more volume coming through the platform through your software. Yeah. There's over 1,350 products on the platform at the moment, and it's available 24/7, 365 days per year. So I'm sure all of you know this, but you can create user areas for your developers, and that's working really well. So you can say, Mr. Investor, rather than you coming to me each time you've got a project and understanding what the finance is, here's a link for you that you can that's your own area where you can do as many searches as you want. They will save. You can make sure you will financially validate projects before you move something forward. So that's something that we always talk about, or I always used to talk about. And then you've got the financial validation of the project. That's really easy to do. That I will talk about on the demo. You've got over 100 senior lenders. So, you know, some of the names are down there. And believe it or not, there's actually 120 data points per product, which means we've got over 157,000 data points that are being monitored and collected each week. So I think the point here you can make is that, you know, look, there's no one, human or otherwise, that can keep up with that level of data. So you can make much better decisions for your customers than pretty much anyone else because of the level of data you have access to. And then here's some quarterly search growth. So this is possibly, you know, just a validation, a vanity graph, if you like. You know, look, this is something that people are doing more and more of. So Q4 in 2024, over 25 billion of loan searches were completed through the platform. It's almost saying to your customer, look, loads of people are doing this. The industry's changed. You need to change as well. Yeah. So that would be a quick sort of slideshow. That's something I put together for today. You know, I've not done that before, but I think it's a really nice thing to do before you then run into the demo. And the demo itself, you know, at the time when I was doing demos, we only had development finance. But I think the same would work with refurbishment. So I would always run a dummy. I'd always run dummy data rather than actual data. The risk you run with running actual data is that the developer doesn't have a particularly good site, and actually that comes up in the search. I mean, that is potentially a good thing, but you know, if you're using the same data each time, then you can actually perfect the demo and highlight its strengths. So as you know, wherever I tended to say, you know, wherever anyone was, so if they're in the Midlands, I would say, right, let's say we're looking for something in the Midlands. It's a purchase, it's an existing building, it's a refurbishment bridge loan. Current use is residential, so we'll stay with that. And I would pick a purchase price, say £1 million. I would say the system will guess your purchase cost at 5%. We can obviously alter those if they're not quite correct. We're going to say that it's a medium refurbishment, Mr. Developer, Mrs. Developer. We've got 500,000 of refurbishment costs. There's a contingency of 5% that's been calculated. Again, we can change that if we want. And let's say our GDV is 2 million and it's going to take you 12 months to do. So this is a really, you know, straightforward search, you know, very round numbers. So what I would do here, I would, you know, talk to them about, you know, I do a left to right and just show them because there's a lot here to digest visually. So first thing I'll talk about is say, look, this is the gross loan. So this is what you will be paying back at the end. This is the net loan amount. This is the build loan, and this is the land loan. So it's these two together that make up this number. The true monthly cost is something that we've made up, which is to combine the annual interest rate, the arrangement fee and exit fee, if there is one, and divide it by the term of the loan. And the reason we've done that is because when you look at interest rates and arrangement fees, it's very hard sometimes to understand where best value is. Sorry, I just need to move this to the other side. So actually, if you roll down quickly, you can quickly see the price of the loan. So this one is, you know, a little bit more expensive, but obviously we rank in order of net loan size as standard. Yeah. So I then explain to them around the deposit profit, you know, that they might want to look at potentially a cheaper option that's going to generate a bit more profit for them with only slightly more deposit. Yeah. What I then tend to do is sort of roll down to the bottom and just show them, perhaps the less sharp end of the market where the deposit has, grown quite substantially and the profit hasn't grown materially. So we've got, say, 500 deposit, 341 profit, whereas up towards the top, we've got, 400 deposit, 300-ish, just under profit. So that showed them that there was, a good or better return on capital employed by using a sensibly priced lender that perhaps has higher leverage. Yeah. I'd always look to show them the shortlist feature. So this is the comparison. So being able to compare lenders side by side. So I would show them that. I would also always share the search results. I'm logged in as administrator, so I don't have the share function that you would as a broker. But there is a share button, send to borrower button, that you can send these results when they're on a call. I mean, we've had some really good feedback from brokers. One in particular stands out. Somebody had called into the office, agreed to purchase something at auction. They'd spoken to a broker had taken some details and said, look, let me come back to you later today, tomorrow with some options. Whereas then they'd called a broker that was using the software and they spent 10 minutes with them on the phone. They did the search. They sent the search results to them whilst they were on the phone so that the customer could actually come in and see what was available. They then talked through the project and the borrower's specifications. So they used the filters and they went through, how many loans have you previously done? How are you purchasing? Is there anything funky around the ownership? Is it overseas? Are you happy to provide a personal guarantee? Do you need anything unusual around valuation? Is it listed? All of these things. And they hit apply, and then obviously the number of lenders changes or it doesn't. But then they know that they've got a really dialed in search. Going back to the unique links, we call them unique links. We need a better name than that. But it's effectively the areas that you can create for the individual borrowers for them to use in their own time. I would always sort of show them this feature where I'd say, right, look, you here, you're putting in this amount of deposit, which is lower than your expected profit. So, first, are you happy with that level of deposit? Yes, could go potentially a bit more, but like to get the profit up. It's like, okay, so let's sort of play around with some of these numbers and just see if we can make it balance more in line with what you want to achieve. So is the GDV right, Mr. Customer? Well, I've actually been a bit conservative. I've had agents tell me it could be as much as 2.2. Okay, well, let's go for 2.1 and see what that does to the deal. So, okay, all of a sudden your deposit is now lower than your profit. That's now starting to look like a better deal, right? Cost of works. Well, yeah, I've probably perhaps been a bit aggressive with that. Okay, so let's cut that to 450,000. Okay, and purchase price, where are you comfortable? Well, the agent has suggested that we might be able to go a bit lower than that price. So, okay, so 950. Let's have a look at that. Okay, now we're starting to see, something that looks really attractive, but actually you can sort of play around with the purchase price a bit more and see where the tolerances are. So the customer might look at this and say, okay, well, actually this one that's particularly attractive. This one that's particularly attractive. I've got a deposit of 277, a profit 428. At 975, I'm comfortable. I appreciate I've got a little bit of headroom, maybe to go a little bit higher. But as long as I'm happy that these two things are true, then I'm happy that purchase price I'm happy at that purchase price. I'll go and speak to Mr. Agent and try and get it agreed. Now, they can do all of this themselves. They can't go to the next stage But what I would always advocate, and this is one thing I'd always say on the demo, is that the results on screen are estimates, right? We've given very limited information at this stage. Location, property type, property size, etc. That's really all we've done. So what we actually need to do, Mr. Customer, is get deal certainty before you offer. And the best way to do that is to get a decision in principle. And the way we do that is we shortlist up to 5 lenders, and we then create a data room or a case on the platform that we invite lenders to. So if you've got time today and they've got a live case, do you want to start doing that now? It will take us 5 to 10 minutes. There's no credit score, but what it will mean is before you go to offer on this property, we'll be able to get you a decision in principle from multiple lenders, knowing you can then go in and offer, knowing that you have the financial support to transact. And we can provide a covering letter, or we can provide proof that lenders will back you to the tune of £975,000. How does that sound, Mr. Customer? Yeah, great. I mean, that is probably, that's a 5-10 minute demo plus building the case, maybe another 5-10 minutes. In 20 minutes, you've done something that would normally take days and weeks for them to complete with anyone not using the software. So the things I would really sort of press to anyone are the things you're selling are speed and deal certainty, right? So it's all well and good speaking to a broker and sort of them going, well, it's going to be about here, it's going to be about this price, it's going to be roughly this loan size. Let me come back to you in a couple of days, I'll confirm. So actually, let's remove that entirely. Let's get deal certainty today. I think there was I saw a message from someone in the team earlier. One of the lenders came back in 7 minutes on a decision in principle earlier. The record's 6 minutes. Going back to that case I was talking about earlier with the broker that was telling us with the auction customer, they hung up on them. They did the dip online and with the customer, and they hit submit. And I think they were able to call them back within 10 or 12 minutes and say that loan has now been agreed. Would you like to me to provide you with proof of that so you can go and satisfy the auctioneer or whatever? So that's huge. That's really, really powerful. And I do think if you turn up with technology to a meeting and you showcase it and show what you're able to do, it's a definite game changer. So that is how I would always run a demo. So it's about doing, perhaps a quick slideshow first, talking about the benefits of the software, why it's so important, why industry behavior is changing, as we can sort of see from these figures here. It's because this saves a lot of money. We have case studies that we have from brokers. I can possibly add some of those in. There's one recently where a property developer, it was a really good story actually. The broker had spoken to them. They said, well, we don't need you. Everyone knows us. Everyone will lend to us. We're a massive developer, blah, 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 normal kind of stuff. And the broker said, fine, go away, find the best terms that you can, but come back to us before you execute, and we'll confirm you've got the best terms in the market. They did that. It took them 2 months. They came back with a term sheet. Yeah, look what we were able to get. The broker was able to run a search on the software. It took them 2 minutes to identify multiple options that were potentially cheaper. They then went to decision in principle. The saving was £480,000. £480,000. That developer now is a complete convert and is happy to work with that broker on every single deal going forward. Yeah. So the power of this is pretty big, but you do need to run demos. Okay. So if we just run back to our agenda quickly, I think this might be the time where we bring in Rosie. Rosie, you there?
Hiya.
She is. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Good. Right. So, Rosie, do you want to introduce yourself? You don't look like your typical property developer. So, give us a bit of background on you, how you got started. Be great to hear.
Yes, I'm Rosie Cassidy from Cassidy Homes, SME house builder. I've grown up in kind of the development construction space. My dad is a house builder. My brothers are contractors. So kind of, a family of it. I'm 28 now. When I was 23, I set up my own SME house builder, building 17 houses at the minute in Cambridgeshire, and got a couple of sites going into planning this year. That's, I guess, a bit about me.
Yeah, cool. Okay, and so what I wanted to just talk about. So, Rosie, for context, when we launched the product at MVP stage, sort of back 2022, 23 time, Rosie, I don't know, I can't remember how exactly, was alerted to the software. You were looking for a loan at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We engaged, we spoke. Obviously, I ran a demo.
Yeah.
What for you? Presumably, you'd spoken to others at that point, or you'd been trying to find finance yourself on other projects. What was the key differentiator, I guess, for you?
Yeah, so we, before speaking with yourself and dealing with the platform, we had dealt with a couple of brokers that we'd come across from Instagram, from LinkedIn, Google, and it just felt so chaotic, and I just didn't understand what was required of me, what was actually being put forward and offered. Whereas obviously when we spoke with you and saw the platform, it was just like, okay, I can see. One, I knew what you needed from me so clearly. I could just plug and play. But then it was so kind of like transparent and clear, exactly what's available initially. And then obviously you then have to go through and see, like, does that meet my criteria? Do I meet their criteria? But it makes it so clear to just start, fine tuning. And then you'd speak to one broker and they'd be like, oh, we didn't go to that bank. It's like, well, why not? Whereas I think, your platform, not to say it's got every lender on, but it's, got a hell of a lot on there. So, it's quite exhaustive as well.
Cool. And so I think I'm right in saying this, that you actually used that you were using the software as well to model your deals.
Yeah.
So how does that help you as a developer? I mean, especially when there's investors in the mix as well.
Yeah. So historically, I had an appraisal that had like a complicated S-curve and cash flow calculator where I could then put in what I think the interest will be, and it'll give me predicted costs. Whereas now I can just very quickly go onto the platform, type in the parameters of the deal, and it gives me live feedback. Obviously, there's a caveat, you've got to then go all the way through, but it gives me that live temperature check of what people would offer for initially looking at the costs in a deal. But then as well, when you're looking at speaking to investors, you can say, these costs are market tested, but also we raise equity, which not all developers do, but obviously equity comes at a high cost. So being able to see not only who's got the highest net loan or the lowest net loan, but the true cost of a loan, for me is really important, because I'm raising equity and that's expensive. Often for me, well, pretty much always, the more expensive lender is actually typically the best lender for me, because the net loan is higher. And when put into my capital stack, it's the better kind of funding solution. But you can see all that so clearly, and you can just say, okay, well, if we did this, we'd raise this, which costs this. If this one, you can just follow it through so clearly, all on one screen, click of a button, rather than across 7 email trains to banks and brokers and whatever. It's just all there to make those decisions really quick.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point, and actually reminds me of something. I was speaking to a developer not so long ago. They're like a regional house builder, delivering something like 200 to 500 units per year.
Yeah.
And their point was that they have equity coming into deals, and the FD was saying, we have no way of proving that we have done a full market search, right? We
Yeah.
can't show, we can't evidence to our shareholders that
Yeah.
we have done best practice. So
Mhm.
to the brokers on the call, you know, I think that's a really important point to make to any property investor, property developer who is borrowing from other people. If there's a profit share, and the difference between the lender they've used and the best lender in the market, let's say it's 400, 500,000 pounds, and it's a
Yeah.
50-50 profit share, you've just cost your investor 200, 250,000 pounds. You know, how can you, as a responsible business owner, and bearing in mind for a lot of these people, it's sometimes close friends and network that it's not, you know, just people they don't really know. You know, you need to show that you've run a proper process, and
Yeah.
obviously you're as a broker using the software, you're able to do that, right? You're able to evidence to them that they can then wave in front of their shareholders, say, look, we did actually test the market, and this was the best deal for XYZ reasons. And I think, I mean, I don't know about you, I'm not sure if it's something you did, but I mean, presumably, if you can kind of show that market search to an investor, that actually is it's a differentiator for you as a developer as well, presumably, because I doubt
Yeah.
many developers would go to the lengths of showing them that they've done that full market search.
Yeah, definitely. Typically as well, because you're having these conversations early doors in tandem and they lead into one another. And it's difficult to do a full market search without the platform. So it wouldn't be uncommon for a developer to say, well, we think it will be about this. So that's why we're looking to raise about £1 million. Whereas if we can say with a click of a button or a few clicks and a few types, here's a market search. If we took the average of that as our model moving forward, that is why we are looking to raise X, Y, Z. It looks like you've done loads of due diligence, but it was actually really easy to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100%. It gives the investors confidence in you, but also in what you're raising, because it's you know, market backed.
It's really interesting. It actually reminds me of speaking to someone, it's quite a while back now, a property developer. He was using some appraisal software, and the software obviously allowed you to insert your own finance costs. And he'd guessed, you know, where the market was pricing based on his own sort of knowledge. And he had exactly that problem. He'd gone to his investors. It was a whole hotel deal. It was quite big. And the equity amount was a few million. But he'd gone to his investors and said, right, I need 2 million from you. But then he ran his project through the software, and he'd actually underestimated his finance cost by more than £1 million. Yeah. So then he had to backtrack massively and go back to his investors. So two things: he'd offered on the site before running that proper tender, and so he was now paying too much for the site. He was then having to go back to his investors and go, I am a credible developer, honest, but I misappropriated my finance costs to the tune of over £1 million. I now need another 600,000 from you. And that investor walked away because they just thought he was a moron. And he said, you know, I'm, you know, sort of like head between or tail between my legs. You know, I now know that I need to run this sooner. So I think, you know, to any investor, the message should be, you know, you need to run a proper process. You need to have an audit trail, and you know, you need to set yourself apart. There's a lot of people looking for equity and investment. You know, if you can show that you're a level above everyone else, then with my support as your broker and our software, then that's hopefully a differentiator for you. Okay, well, look, just quickly then, did you felt like you had more knowledge and confidence, it sounds like, when we were able to sort of search the market like that?
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, both from the raising the funds and actually knowing what it costs, but also, as you just mentioned or alluded to with the other client, at the offering stage, you know, we know we're making an offer that has, you know, accounted for all your major costs correctly and market tested in the same way I would, you know, speak to agents about GDVs or my contractor around build cost. Finance is your next biggest cost. You know, it needs to be market tested, so you know you're offering and you've checked all your boxes.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. You know, you speak to investors and you speak to developers, and you know they're really proud of the fact that they've managed to save themselves £10,000 in their build budget by like drilling the contractor on the cost of nails, and they've spent 6 months doing that, and yet they go and drop 50,000 or 100,000 by not doing a proper market search. Which is just insane.
I think as well, we had this with yourself and the platform with our current lender. We've got some excellent terms. I got approached independently from a different broker with a different bank, and they put a good term forward. You know, I don't think we would have been able to beat that and get the lending we got if it wasn't for the relationship you guys have. But you know, part of that relationship is those banks knowing the volume that's going through Brickflow. They don't want to not be in favor with Brickflow, if that makes sense. So, you know, the more people that are kind of using it, the banks are aware of that. And that in itself is really powerful, I think, in getting, you know, either cheaper lending or stretching your lending facility, just more favorable lending in general, as opposed to, no offense to, you know, little, you know, small brokers, but if you're, you know, you've got the kind of power in numbers, so to speak.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Okay, so finally, I know you're busy, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but you know, there's a number of brokers on the call. There's 43 people on the call, you know, all potentially looking to work with developers, property investors. What advice would you give to brokers looking to build stronger relationships with investors like yourself?
I think having a really good understanding of how that particular client funds their deals, and being able to kind of apply that knowledge with what you can see on, you know, a platform like Brickflow to say, this is why this lender would be best for you, because you raise equity, you want to do X, Y, Z, or because you're, you know, new to the game, this lender, you know, is more appropriate for you. You know, actually having that applied knowledge and using the platform, because obviously, you know, for me, the platform, like I say, it's just so much more easily digestible, so much more presentable. So it makes your job easier as a broker, but it also does look better, you know, and is more receivable by the developer this side. But then, like I say, just going that step further and having that kind of critical thinking, applied thought of, okay, well, here are all the options, knowing my client and what they're after, what would my actual like professional advice be, you know, with that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, we talk about this kind of hybrid like solution is that the tech is there to elevate and sort of enable people and to provide a better service. Is not there obviously to replace them, because there's a lot of nuance to the market that, you know, it takes a human with experience and knowledge of like how individual lenders and processes work to actually get the best from the technology. And so, but I think, yeah, you're right, that marriage of the two of like, look, we're not looking at this lender for this reason, and being able to sort of point to it on screen, so that when Dave down the pub says, well, why haven't you spoken to so-and-so? And it's like, well, I know why I haven't spoken to so-and-so, they don't meet my requirement. So yeah, exactly. Okay, great. Well, listen, Rosie, thank you for joining. I hope that was useful to some of the guys on the call. I'll catch up with you soon.
Perfect. Thanks. See ya.
Cheers, Rosie.
Bye.
So yeah, that's it for today, guys. I'm just checking, did we have anything more? There's a bit around client relationships, which I think we've probably covered with Rosie. You know, how you can build those. I mean, for me, you know, the way I always envisage people using Brickflow is it enables you to get out from behind your desk and go and meet customers. You know, you've got a laptop or a tablet. You know, if you can go to a site, you know, all developers, you know, Rosie just talked about it there. she's finishing a 17 unit scheme at the moment. She's already got 2 other schemes she's looking at in planning. You know, go and meet them on site. You know, what's the next project? Take your laptop, load up the software. You know, look, what are you looking at? I remember a couple of years ago speaking to 2 developers and going with them through the on screen. They had 6 sites, 6, and we went through them one by one on the screen. It took us about 45 minutes, but they instantly dismissed 4 of those schemes because they didn't work for them. And they then pursued 2 of them, and I believe those 2 went forward. But the point was, and I remember this vividly, and this is again was, you know, early after our launch, so it was like a kind of validation when we had our MVP. These 2 guys, and they were, you know, very, very successful developers, you know, building, you know, hotels and office blocks and things like that, you know, at 40, 50, 60 million. And they said that that call would save them 6 months of work. Like, so that 45 minutes spent running through the numbers, being able to dismiss 4 sites that they've been looking at, was a huge, huge time saver for them, because they wouldn't spend any more time on them having had that call. So I think this is the way you need to think about it strategically. Is like, look, you know, I can actually save you a lot of time here. You've got 10 sites you're looking at any one time. 9 of them probably don't work for you financially, yet you're going to spend countless hours on getting excited about them, looking at them, or doing your due diligence when they don't actually work. And a 2-minute search on my software will save you, you know, weeks and months of your life every single year by you not looking at sites that don't work. And again, you can spin up their own little version for them to go in and do that financial due diligence. So, you know, I'd encourage you go and meet them on their sites. You know, have a look around. You know, get some pictures for your social media. You know, have that. Great. Can we just sit down for 5 minutes, grab a coffee, look at the software? You know, look, we can have a look. What sites are you looking at the moment? You know, that you can bet your bottom dollar whatever lender is working with them on that site will be in their ear every time they're going to site and saying, you know, what's happening next site? Can we, you know, let's help you fund that. If you turn up with the software and you can actually demonstrate that the incumbent lender is not the best option on their next site, then all of a sudden you're front of the queue rather than them. So, you know, think strategically about it, get the demos, you know, just discipline yourself to run, you know, 10 demos every week, 2 a day. Try and nail 2 a day for 3 months, and just see your business skyrocket. You know, go and meet them on site, go and show it to accountants, go and show it to agents,